In the aftermath of World War I, the Ottoman Empire stood defeated, occupied, and politically hollow. What had once been a vast imperial system ruling millions across 3 continents was now reduced to a fractured state under foreign control. The war had exhausted its resources, shattered its authority, and exposed the limits of imperial survival in the modern age. Within a few short years, 6 centuries of Ottoman rule would come to an end, replaced by a new political vision centered on nationalism, secularism, and republican governance. The armistice of 1918 marked more than military defeat. Allied forces moved quickly to occupy strategic regions, including the capital itself. Ottoman institutions remained in place, but real power no longer rested with the Sultan. The empire's leadership lacked credibility. Its army was disbanded, and its economy lay in ruins. For many Ottomans, the post-war period felt like a slow-motion collapse, with decisions about their future being made by foreign powers rather than by their own government. The Sultanate, already weakened by decades of reform and internal conflict, became a symbol of failure in the eyes of many. Sultan Mehmed VI presided over a state that existed largely on paper, unable to resist occupation or defend national interests. Treaties proposed by the victorious powers aimed to divide Ottoman territories into zones of influence, threatening to erase the political independence of what remained. Acceptance of these terms deepened public anger and disillusionment. Amid this uncertainty, a new figure emerged from the ranks of the former Ottoman military. Mustafa Kemal, a seasoned officer shaped by years of war, rejected the idea that defeat meant surrender. He believed the empire could not be saved, but that a nation could still be built from its ruins. His vision did not revolve around restoring the Sultan's authority or preserving imperial traditions. Instead, it focused on sovereignty rooted in the will of the people. National resistance began quietly, then spread rapidly across Anatolia. Local groups organized to oppose foreign occupation and reject imposed settlements. Mustafa Kemal positioned himself at the center of this movement, transforming scattered opposition into a coordinated national struggle. A new political body emerged, claiming legitimacy not from dynastic rule but from popular representation. This marked a decisive break with the Ottoman past. The struggle that followed was not only against foreign forces, but also against the existing imperial order. The Sultan's government in the occupied capital condemned the resistance, viewing it as rebellion. This division created 2 competing centers of authority, one tied to the old empire and the other to a future republic. As the conflict intensified, loyalty to the Sultan steadily eroded, especially among soldiers and civilians who saw resistance as the only path to dignity and survival. Military success strengthened the nationalist cause. As occupying forces were pushed back, confidence grew in the idea of full independence. These victories were not merely battlefield achievements, they were political turning points. They demonstrated that authority no longer flowed from the palace, but from the ability to defend national sovereignty. The empire's legacy of centralized rule was being replaced by a new source of legitimacy grounded in collective struggle. In 1922, the break with the past became official. The Sultanate was abolished, ending the institution that had defined Ottoman governance since its founding. This decision was both symbolic and practical. It removed the last pillar of imperial authority and confirmed that the future would not include dynastic rule. The Sultan departed into exile, marking the quiet conclusion of a line of rulers that had once shaped world history. The abolition of the Sultanate cleared the way for the proclamation of a republic. In 1923, a new state was formally established, with its capital moved away from the imperial center to a city representing a new beginning. Mustafa Kemal, now widely recognized as the leader of the national struggle, became the republic's first president. The transition was complete. An empire built on conquest and tradition had given way to a nation-state built on reform and modern identity. The new republic defined itself in deliberate contrast to the Ottoman past. Secularism replaced religious authority in governance, signaling a fundamental shift in the relationship between state and faith. Legal systems were restructured, education was reformed, and symbols of imperial culture were gradually replaced. These changes were not without resistance, but they reflected a belief that survival in the modern world required transformation rather than continuity. For many, the end of the Ottoman Empire was deeply emotional. It represented the loss of a shared imperial identity that had shaped generations. For others, it was a necessary conclusion to a system they believed had outlived its usefulness. The Republic did not claim to be the empire's successor in spirit, but rather its replacement in purpose. Where the empire had ruled diverse peoples, the Republic focused on forging a unified national identity. International recognition followed, confirming the new state's sovereignty and closing the chapter on imperial intervention. Borders were defined, treaties revised, and the long process of rebuilding began. The challenges were immense, from economic recovery to social change. But the sense of direction was clear. The future would no longer be dictated by palace politics or imperial ambition, but by national policy and reform. The transformation from empire to republic was not simply a change of government. It was a redefinition of political authority, identity, and legitimacy. 600 years of Ottoman rule had left a deep imprint on law, culture, and memory. Yet history had moved in a different direction, one where empires gave way to nation-states and tradition yielded to modern governance. The fall of the Ottoman Empire did not erase its influence. Its legacy continued in language, architecture, and regional politics, but as a political system, it belonged to another era. The Republic, born in 1923, represented both an end and a beginning, closing one of the longest chapters in world history, while opening a new one shaped by nationalism, reform, and secular ideals. In the end, the Ottoman story concluded not with sudden collapse, but with deliberate transformation. Defeat created the conditions, leadership provided direction, and reform defined the outcome. From the ashes of empire rose a republic determined to chart its own path, leaving behind 6 centuries of imperial rule and stepping into the modern age.